Urobowado, Makwa Brise, Anomo, Otanoni Kawire, Omona, Ojibere. The child is fond of crying in the night, disturbing the mother from sleeping. Our ancestors say the child too will not also sleep. Yes, for some time now, because our major focus, the purpose of establishing the Wado City advocacy is an indigenous, peaceful way of resolving the Warri crisis. You see, resolving Warri crisis requires government decision, Itsekiri's participation, and Ejiro participation. And everybody, when they sit on the table, begin to bring out their own interests. And sometimes, instead of government to be objective and take the bull by the horn, government will be using politics, sentiments, second tenure, votes, party affiliation to take decision on the altar of truth. With that kind of behavior, a solution can never be obtained. When a governor or president who saw the truth wants to take decisions, why will I take the decision when these people voted against me during the election? These people supported me during the election, they gave me money. These people, they are my people. And please, let me postpone it to another governor. I can't do it. So, the people themselves must have to look for a non-violent way within the limits of the law to solve the problem. I have told you people that when you mention the word worry, to us here mostly, we know it majorly belongs to the Urobos. But to the government, the state government, it belongs to the Urobos, Ejiro Imuere. But to the federal government, 90% they will tell you it's Itsekiri because of the way the Itsekiri play their politics. And that is why we say, for to naked it, to give the truth to the government, just change the name of the Urobo areas to Wado City. So that once they come down from Osibu Airport, Wado City, roundabout Wado City, Airport Junction, Wado City, NL Junction, Wado City, Share Ramp, Wado City, Igbudu Market, Wado City, Agbassa, Wado City, Mobile Avenue, Wado City, Ejeba, Wado City, Ogunu, Wado City, Udubri, Wado City, Refinery, Wado City. The government will know that over the years, the Urobos have been oppressed, that is their city. Now, in all this, the best way to know people that own the land is the traditional history of the place. We have given traditional history of how we own our lands. Itsekiris too have given their traditional history in the different cases. Now, let us mark the response of the court. In the Idudu versus Okubaba case, Urobo gave their history. Itsekiri gave their history. The judge said he believed the Urobo history and dismissed the Itsekiri history and said it is what? A fabrication. Then, let's go to Sapele. The judge said he believes the story of the Urobo people, of how Sapele was founded, and dismissed the story of the Itsekiri and said it is what? A fabrication. Then from there, let's move to Ogarifi. The judge said he believed the testimony of the Urobo people and that the story of Mary Dasim saying Mama gave her, none of Itsekiri gave her land when she previously testified in another case that the Ogarifi people gave her land is a fabrication. Then let's go to Okobodo case now. Pamayo Warri of Musuga. The judge said, where he said Uga, brother of Ginua, founded Okobodo, is also a fabrication. So, in all the stories where Urobos clash with the Itsekiris in court, nearly all, the judges, different judges, so not only one judge, have always arrived at one conclusion, that the historical claim of the Itsekiris family land are all fabrication. They fabricate the history and they lie a lot. Now, the only case where the Itsekiris feel that they have victory, feel, is the Ometa versus Dore Numa, which is the Agbassa case. Unfortunately, that case, like I told you, did not involve families whose ancestors founded the land. If not, Dore Numa would have crashed immediately, because Dore Numa came from Batare. Dore Numa did not found any land in the whole of Warri Township, not even Okere. The person he was joining the land with, Ometa, was the head chief of the Agbassa people. So the case was not about family who founded the land. The case was about territoriality as enshrined in the native land acquisition ordinance of that time, that only the head chief of a community can go and litigate on behalf of that land, not the people whose ancestors founded the land. Now, supposing Delta State or Delta State want to dispute Ologbo with Edo State people, who will go to court? Maybe you now begin to understand the matter. Now, the people that will go to court is the governor of Delta State, Sheriff Warri, and Okpavolo, not the people of Ugbenu, because Ugbenu is a Ologbo village that shares boundary with Ologbo in Edo State, or the Itsekiris of Ologbo in Edo State. Get what I'm trying to tell you? As at that time, the individual families do not have rights to litigate on a community. So, Sheriff and Osupi man will now go and litigate, and you know it's happened now, between Cross River State and River State, about oil well that is supposed to be collected from some communities. And in the end, River State won most of the case at the Supreme Court. But are there not families farming the place? But it is the 30% derivation will be paid into. So who will collect the revenue from Agbassa? Because at that time there was no local government chairman. The king of the community, or the head chief of the community, was the local government chairman. So which local government chairman will collect the revenue from Ogbija and Agbassa land? Is it the Agbassa head chief or the Itsekiri head chief, who was Dore Numa? That was the question that they went to court for. So it is not the two families, no. So if Sheriff now win, for example, Ologbo in Edo State, will you now say simply because Sheriff is an Ologbo man that Ologbo now owns Ologbo in Edo State, and now if it's not added to Delta State? That is what we want the Itsekiris to understand. And that it is the cases here now that will make people to understand that whatever the head chief had that time was a nominal, in name only. The kind of ownership was a visual ownership. If there is a visual ownership, then it means that there is a real ownership. If there is a nominal tribute, it means that there is a real tribute. You understand the concept? Now, the Itsekiris are interpreting the judgment with their ordinary eyes. They are not interpreting it in line of the court. Now, let me tell you how Itsekiris interpret judgment with their ordinary eyes. They are fond of doing that, and it's going to cause them great problem. Just now, the Itsekiris are telling us that the Sapele case is only the 510 acres of land that was litigated upon that belongs to the Okpe people. That the remaining part, because it was not litigated, belong to them. The same argument they are giving, that the 281.1 acres of land litigated in the versus Okumaba case was what Okumaba people won. Now the rest part belong to them. They have forgotten that Okumaba won almost 80 acres of land in court from the Ubonikoko Uwe people. They have forgotten too that the Horsey College that they leased and the Itsekiri Social Cultural Cooperative Building was not part of the 201 acres of land. So they begin to give themselves false hope by twisting and misinterpreting judgment. While they are doing that, they forgot too that it was only 361 acres of Agbassa land that was litigated upon. And here they are using that judgment to claim not the whole of Agbassa and Igbudu, but the Sheba, Ogudu, down to Tegele across the river. Places not captured by the survey map. But if it is their own, they will only the area that was litigated. And so, the same thing too, when they went to for Ugoloposo, the Uya people defeated them at the High Court based on traditional history. They said Ugoloposo people fabricated their history. At the Appeal Court agreed with the High Court. Then the Supreme Court just played magic. That is why Yoruba people must be guard your case jealously, particularly when it gets to the Supreme Court. Because once the Supreme Court makes any pronouncement, it becomes law. The Supreme Court this time around said both parties fabricated history. And because both parties fabricated history, the Supreme Court will go back to the Dore Numa demarcation of 1925. So let the Supreme Court mark boundary for them, and now they should use that boundary as a boundary between the two communities. A boundary between the two communities does not translate to ownership of land, because people on this side can still own land which inherited from their ancestors. But the boundary just means this: once you cross this boundary, call this side the Ugoloposo, call this side the Efo. That is what it means. But Ugoloposo people now claim that their boundaries say they own all the land down to Agbaro Bridge, including Ugomo, Ebumede, Okwadata, and all the villages there. And so, forgetting that the Ogbe family of Ubi even own some land in Ugoloposo. And so, when they now wanted to enforce the judgment, they wanted to go and sell some people land in Ugomo and Ebumede based on the judgment. They were resisted. They have forgotten too that Ugomo have a judgment against them. In 1950, I have the judgment where Ugomo defeated them in court. And so, they had to go to court to seek for a judicial interpretation of the judgment they got from the Supreme Court. And the court told them, no, it is only the area that you disputed, that area creek. All these other areas in the survey map were not litigated upon. You can't use that judgment to claim the whole of other places. So what happened? They tied their hands. They have now limited what they got now to a very small area, which is, it means that they did not even own the whole of Ugoloposo by that judgment. Because Ugoloposo people, I know the people were disputing a place where crude oil was found by Shell called Erere Creek. And the court have interpreted that from what they see now, it's only Erere Creek that belongs to Ugoloposo. They have appealed to the appeal court. So let's see how they interpret the judgment. And so, when Agbassa people came back from the privy court in 1934, Itsekiri now said that they own the whole of Agbassa, that they are the landlord, that Agbassa people are their tenants. And that is what they have told their people today. Now, the test of that judgment that came out. What does the judgment mean? Because Agbassa people outrightly rejected the judgment. And so, they wanted to lease Warri Cemetery. When they wanted to lease Warri Cemetery, like I told you, government at that time, what they do, they give out, they file notice of acquisition. As in, we want to lease social and social land. Anybody who wants to, who have interest in the land should come out. And so the government issued a notice, is Gazette number 62 of 1941. After they will say that it was Olu that leased the land. No, it was the public acquisition. Public Land Acquisition Ordinance, Chapter 88. Land required for the service of the government. Notice is hereby given that the following land situated at Warri in the Warri province are required by the government for public purposes. Description: all that piece of land adjoining the site of African Cemetery at Warri in the Warri province, comprising an area of approximately 2,296 acres, the boundaries of which are as follows: starting at the concrete pillar, the measurement and the rest. Now, the important thing is this. Number two, the number one is description now. Any person claiming to have any right or interest in the land is required within 6 weeks from the date of the publication of this notice in the Nigerian Gazette to send to the Secretary, Western Provinces, a statement of his right and interest, and of the evidence thereof of any claim in respect of such interest of land. So they didn't go and meet Olu, say, Olu, you are the owner of the land, come and listen to us. Public notice. Any person, when you know, say, I get the land, when you get interest for there, should come and tell us. The governor is willing to treat for the acquisition of this land that the government is ready to pay for the of this land. Land in respect of which no statement is received are liable to be dealt with as unoccupied land. And if anybody does not show up that is the owner of the land, they will not treat it as if it's a free land, unoccupied. And notice is hereby given that the government intends to enter into possession of the said land and the expiration of the 6 weeks from the date of the publication of this notice in the Nigerian Gazette. Any person who shall willfully hinder or obstruct the governor or any person employed by him from taking possession of the said land or any part thereof is liable under the provision of ordinance above on conviction to a fine of £25 or an imprisonment of 3 months. Dated on the 22nd day of September 1941, G.G. Shute, Acting Chief Commissioner, Warri Province. So, don't let anybody come and deceive you people that government leaves the land for so and so person. Now, after it happened, a man called Ejiro is the person who have crops on the area. He now wrote to the government. I think I've told you before. Government, he said he will take £30. Government said he's willing to pay £8 or £50, something like that. Then Agbassa community now came. They said they are the owner of the land. Then Olu now came. Olu said he's the owner of the land. Say Agbassa people are his tenants, that they should give him the land. And so based on that, the government now came to investigate. After the government came to investigate, they found that actually the 3 people have interest in the land. And so the government said he is willing to pay £21. And the government gave £21 to the Olu of Warri as the head chief of the community, because the law said only the head chief of the community. And the Agbassa judgment that time was that Olu was their head chief. That was just the judgment. That's what he said. No court can deny Agbassa people the right to occupy their land, provided they recognize the Olu of Warri as their head chief. That's what it means. Provided they recognize the Olu of Warri as their overlord. In other words, they want to make Agbassa people Itsekiri people. It's the same thing with Besu. It's the same thing with Okere. It's the same thing with Ejiro Imuere. The same thing. Whenever they want to lease their land, it's Olu that will lease it. So the fight of Agbassa is not that Olu owns their land. Olu is not our head chief. That money you paid to him, don't pay to him. If you're not caught and deny Agbassa people the right of their land. Now, listen. So if this one government was at the trial, when they want to lease the land, look at it too. This deed is made on the 28th day of December 1977 between Ginowa II, Olu of Itsekiri, Chief Ebo of Igbudu, occupier, Chief Olofegara, representing the Agbassa community, hearing after called the lessons. So was it Olu alone that lived the land? Olu, the person farming the land, and the community. So you see the land, the Igbudu Cemetery, or the Warri Cemetery, was leased on the deed was made on the 28th day of December 1936. And the lessons, the people who leased it, were Ginwa the second, the Olu of Itsekiri, Chief Ebo of Igbudu, Chief Olofegara, representing the Agbassa community. So as you can see, Olu alone could not. But there were very many instances that the Agbassa people leased the land alone by themselves. Very many without Olu. And the district commissioner went and registered the deed for them. And when Olu reacted, he went to court. He said he wanted to evict them. Only after some time, Olu, when they come and prove how you own the land, Olu himself ran away. The only thing they allowed him is this: you can only file for your overlordship money. You cannot void the lease. But the one who went to lease from Olu alone, without the Agbassa people, could not enter the land until they went to make a lease again from Agbassa people. So it was a family that owned land is very important. We don't understand. And so when they give Olu the money now from these people, Olu said he's the overlord. He's going to take 13 pounds because the governor finally paid 21 pounds. He said he's going to take 13 pounds. We'll give Agbassa people 8 pounds. Agbassa people say you lie. And they went to court for the interpretation of the judgment. And Judge Jackson now interpreted the judgment. He said, Ejiro, who owns the land, should be given 5 pounds. Who has crops on the land should be given 5 pounds. Then 15 pounds to the Agbassa community for the loss occasioned by the severance of their communal land and the subsequent duty of allotting other land to Ejiro family. In other words, the land belongs to Agbassa community. 1 pound being assessment of tribute upon annual tribute from the land value, and 1 pound, that is in all, I do award Ginwa, Olu of Itsekiri, 1 pound. So Olu got only 1 pound. So even if you read anywhere from any judgment before saying Olu Niger land, but they can't pay 21 pounds. They can't share and say, Ejiro will get crops 5 pounds. Agbassa community 50 pounds, Olu 1 pound. You know, we must say something get wrong with that judgment when you say Olu Niger land. You will not say the judgment it get as it be. How can somebody get? Now, listen. Some of you are thinking that the 20 pounds given to Agbassa people was because of crops that they have there. That they estimated the crops. And so they paid them for the value of their crops. That Olu got 1 pound, be the landlord. That is not it. The only person that had crops there that they valued was Ejiro. The other Agbassa people don't have crops there. The only person that had crops was Ejiro. And they gave him 5 pounds. Agbassa community don't have any crops. They don't have crops there. What they have is land. They gave them 50 pounds. Now, if the argument is still not clear, we will now go to the next lease where there were no crops. Because if the argument is that it is because crops were in the land, that was why Agbassa people received the lion's share, we will now go to the next lease where there were no crops. Nobody has ever found the place before. It was a virgin forest in Agbassa. How they shared the money, because if it's a virgin forest without crops, then the Olu should take everything, isn't it? Give me overlord. So let's see how justice Adebola handle that matter.